Hey, this is the Daily Overpass. My name's Eric. I make apps. Now today I want to talk about how I completely messed up my source code, but I use source code control to recover. Alright, so I have completely messed up the code on one of my apps. Right, everything was working fine, is out on the market, it's making money, not a lot of money, but it's making a little bit, right, and everything's working, no bugs, and I had an idea. So I had this great idea. I don't even remember what the idea was, but I went through and I started tinkering with things. See, the thing is, as a software developer, I like to tinker. Nothing is ever good enough. Everything could be a little bit better. Whether it's adding a new little animation to a logo or something like that, or adding a new ad network, or putting some new analytics in, or just changing the structure of everything. This is the thing. A lot of times, we developers, we like to change things, and it's imperceptible to the user. It's just like the code is not structured in the right way. You know what would be really cool is if we take this module and make it smaller, more efficient, so we have like a, it's just easier to replicate, all this kind of stuff. This is the kind of stuff I do. However, unlike in the old days when I just did software development, I could just block out, I'm going to block out the next 4 hours, I'm going to block out the next 2 days, and I'm just going to do this, right? When I start tinkering with things now, the phone will ring, something will happen, I gotta go, there'll be some problem, maybe something at home, maybe I gotta go do something, and then, or more likely than not, another shiny thing pops up. Like I'll have an idea for an app and I'll start changing it, and I'll think, oh, you know what, no, I should have done that in the other app, and I'll just switch over to the other one, and then I'll come back to the original code a few months later, and it's in the state of, there's bugs in it. There's things that I've done but never completed. It's like if you ever clean your garage, you pull everything out and you put everything away, and then you can't finish it, so you just shove everything back in, and then it looks worse than it did when you started. That's kind of what it's like. Now, fortunately, I use source code control. So I've used source code control for years, and I won't code without it. Is one of the things and I talk to, when we get clients, when we get people with existing code that come in, they say, can you have a look at my app? I say, yeah, just send me the Subversion or Git or whatever it is you're using, and I'll download it. And they don't. They just zip it up and send it to me because they're not using any source code control, and I think that is crazy. And just personally, one of the things I really struggle with when I hire people, bring people on, is getting them to use source code control. Even if I could get them to download from our Git repository, a lot of times they'll zip stuff back and send it to me, or, and this drives me crazy, they'll rename the folder and then submit it again as a subfolder in the same Git repository, so we have all this duplication all over the place. Alright, so today what I want to do is talk about Git, talk about what I do when I mess up the code, things like this. Right, and how it really saves me. Now, in the past I've used Visual Source Safe for .NET, actually it's like VB6 I think, and then Team Foundation Server for .NET projects, and then I moved over to Subversion. I was a big fan of Subversion, and then we moved on to Git, and everybody uses Git. The big advantage of Git, and again, there's so many nuances to this. There's people who are far more into Git and source code control than I am. They could talk about it for days and days, and I probably just use a subset of it. But for me, the big difference between Git and Subversion is that I can commit my changes locally and not have to push them to the cloud for everybody to see or for all the team to see. But I prefer to do that anyway. So most of the time when I do a commit, I do a push as well. So let me have a look at my screen over here. So here's the app. Now this is actually Lua. So this is Lua on JetBrains WebStorm. So I use WebStorm IDEs a lot. I use WebStorm. I use IntelliJ. Although IntelliJ is pretty much the same as Android Studio. It just I paid for it, so I might as well use it. Or PHP Storm if I ever have to work on PHP. Right, and then there's one of the nice things about the JetBrains tools is that they have consistent interfaces across all of them. So I like to use it. So whatever it is. So I made a change here at some point in the past, and I need to check it. Now every time I make a change, or I'm about to make a change, or even if I can't remember the change I made before, I will go in and I'll do Git status. And basically what that'll do is it'll check against the local Git repository and see if I've made any changes to any of the code locally that hasn't been committed. And if I see there's anything, I'll just do git add dot, just add everything in. You can do it one file at a time, but I'm very simple, and I always just do one at a I just do everything. I do the whole folder. Even using git ignore, you could use a file called git ignore if you want to exclude all the libraries and everything like that. I try to do that, but sometimes I'll just commit everything. I don't really care, right? I'll let the developer who takes it over handle that, right? So they can delete all that stuff. So git add, git commit, and then test commit. So test commit again, because this is the second time being through this video because I forgot to record the screen. So test commit again. It can't do anything, and then I'll do git push. And git push, so if I just did git commit, that's fine. Everything's stored locally, and I could go back to that version of code if I need to. So if I pull everything out of the garage and I decide, man, I just wish I hadn't even started this, then I could go back to that. But I'm not going to do the git push at the moment, although I try to do it as often as possible, because there are two types of people who back up files and code. There are those who've had a hard drive failure in the past and those who haven't. And unfortunately, I've had several hard drive failures in the past, and I don't trust one single hard drive. I usually have multiple backups all over the place. So that's it. Most of the time, that's the flow. It's git check, git commit, whatever. Right? If I go into Jetstorms, I mean, everything you could do from the command line like that. There's lots of tools out there. I think we use one called source branch or branch tree or something like that on the Mac. There's all kinds of different git, git and Subversion clients. We use Tortoise SVN a lot in the past. But in JetBrains tools, you could pretty much go into any code window. Let's say this home.lua. I could go in here and say, go into Git, and I can say show me the history. So here at the bottom I can see the history of every time I've changed this file in the past. So even though I've committed everything each time, it'll say when this particular file has passed. I could also log into Bitbucket, which is where I push it, and then view the changes there too. And if I want to go through here and say, so what I could do here is just say, screw this, I just want to roll back to the last version, right? Which is one thing I could do. Another thing I could do is just show history. So actually compare with, and let's say I want to compare it with the one from last July, right here, and I could go here and see all the changes that have been made left and right, comparing the code and what I've done over time, and if I wanted to specifically go back through and check something. And this is really helpful if you release something and you're sure that it worked before and you didn't. You can take it and check that code out, put it in a different location, run it, everything like that. But mostly for my own benefit, the reason I use the source code control is that I can roll back and it's like a safety net if I want to make a change. Now, and the nice thing about doing the git diff, or checking the differences between files over time, and you can do this through the command line too, but they got like plus, plus, minus, minus, stuff like that, and I think it looks like vomit, so I never use that, right? The nice thing about this is that if I'm several versions in, so let's say with Ear Agent, I've had this kind of issue before where I've added a new ad network. I've had it in there for 6 months. I had several changes and modifications and bug fixes in between there, but then I go through and I want to remove that ad network. And this has actually happened where I've gone through and I just did it from memory. I just thought, okay, I remember what it was. Check, move it from there, move it from there, move it there. And I think it was either the manifest or the on pause function where I forgot to remove something. And it was crashing on certain devices. I did the limited rollout and it was crashing on a few devices. It wasn't crashing on mine. It wasn't crashing on all of them. But a few of them were crashing because I left that little bit of code in there. And what I should have done was gone back to that commit in Git and say, okay, so which files were changed, and go and diff each one. Then I could manually go through and remove them without rolling back and losing all the changes since then. So anyway, my point today, to end off this week, is that if you're not using source code control, you really should, and junior developers especially, who don't see the use of it. I hope this is a bit more clear. It's not so much for your boss, it's for you, so you can go through and make changes and be very daring with your code and not have to worry about the fact that, like, if you just want to completely restructure everything, not have to worry about the fact that, oh, if I completely mess everything up, then I'm screwed, or it's all or nothing. I have to move, do this and then go back to the last version or whatever. Another thing you can do is branching. So if I have 2 bits of code, one experimental, one live, and I want to update the live as it goes, but the experimental one I want to continue, I can have 2 branches of code that keep going forward and merge them through source code control. So anyway, I hope that's been helpful. Let me know how you guys are using Git, and if you're not using it. And that's it for today. Hey, that's it for this week. I'll talk to you guys on Monday.